Tom, what is the earliest context that I need to know about you that has made you into the person you are today?
I feel like mostly I tend to fail a lot. So I make a lot of mistake in the past. I basically went through a lot of like things where it just didn't work out as the way it was planned. And that's like the number one thing I feel like that made me into who I am today.
Is that like something that you've picked up on since like elementary school, middle school, high school? Like, what do you mean exactly by you like your background was like failing a lot?
So like throughout like elementary school, throughout middle school, and even early like in my high school career is like I tend to do well in class, school, etc. But then like suddenly it just like I want to like branch out to explore different type of topics. So and at the time when I was like a sophomore, I was looking into like my career. So like trying like determine like which career path should I be like going towards, and that's how I would shape my extracurriculars, my classes towards that career. And that's when the moment when I stopped caring about actual like the grades or the school. It's just like, oh, I'm gonna pick the class that I want to explore, whether it's good or not. But I just want to pick the classes that relate to my goals. And from there, I eventually like, oh, that's fine. I don't care about like whatever mistake I end up making, which I make quite a bit of mistake.
So take me back to kind of your high school years. What was it exactly that you were chasing? What did you want out of life? And what were some of the challenges that you picked up for yourself?
So when I was in high school, when I was specifically freshman year, that's when I started looking into like career choices. Cause my mom, a lot of time, like Asian parents, they talk about like, oh, like you should become a doctor, you should become a lawyer. Doctors like known for the Asian parents. She told me to become a lawyer maybe because I like to argue back, which is like different from typical Asian kid. And I guess like from there I started thinking, okay, well, I don't want to be any of these things that my mom like told me to do, but I should explore into like at least a career choice that like might make some sort of money, that like fit what I potentially want. And eventually I just search up, oh, like what's like the most like paid engineering major, and or I guess role, and that comes down to like petroleum engineer and software engineer. That's like a top two choices. Well, petroleum engineer at the time, it was ranked higher for some reason, and I didn't want to do that because I don't want to be like away from home.
Right.
And so eventually, okay, software engineer, and that's how I kind of picked it.
What does a petroleum engineer do?
That I don't know. They do something relate to like gas or like a lot of oil, gas rig type of stuff. I'm not too sure.
So, recognizing that you wanted to go into a field of like computer science, is that something you strive to be good at during high school? Did you immerse yourself in the world of computer science, or did you not do any extracurriculars at all? What did that kind of, how did you start chasing that dream?
So the first time was when I took a community college course at West Valley College. So it's in Saratoga. And to be honest, I just like it just looked good at the time. It's like, oh, I'm taking a computer science class. That's cool. And yeah, no, but like realistically, I didn't really like it at the time. The class was too early. It was at 8 a.m. and I just basically come class and take a nap, wake up when class over, and just go home. And so at the time, I didn't really understand how that concept works, nor I really care. I just wanted to have that name saying that, oh yeah, I took a computer science course in high school.
Right, right. And did that benefit you at all? Like, well, you said you were sleeping through this class. Like, was it like an introductory like Python class?
It was a Java class. I started with Java. I didn't really understand it. My brain didn't really process the information. And to be honest, after like I finished that class, I want to switch major. um, yeah.
No, I definitely like understand that feeling because I tried to teach myself Python over the summer, but instead of actually getting anywhere with like the projects, I honestly didn't retain much. And I feel like that's what most of my career within like learning about computer science has been. It's just been trying to understand these fundamentals of like lists and like trying to take data out of these lists and try to put in data, but I never really pursued my own project. But did you ever try to pursue your own project when it came to computer science at all?
Yeah, so that happened like 2 years later. So during that time of like me taking my first computer science course and I didn't really like it, I was looking to like maybe bioengineering, maybe finance. And that basically took up 2 years. And by the time I graduate high school, I that's when I realized like okay, let's just stick with computer science because at this point like this is probably the best career path I could take right now, considering the fact that I don't know what I want to do. But during that time, I tried to learn like HTML, CSS, React, etc. And that's basically try to build some sort of website, some basic project that realistically most people could do with GPT nowadays.
Oh no.
Um, but that's like I guess like the first couple projects I tried to build.
hmm And you mentioned earlier on that you typically failed at these. Like, how long did it take for you to like kind of grasp everything in computer science?
Um, I don't think to this day I still like tend to make a lot of mistake in term of computer science. I still like do somewhat average slash like below average in class. To be honest, I haven't changed much since then. I still like try to pick the courses I think that I will learn the most, but like the result might not be there in terms of grades.
Gotcha. So you're on this path towards trying to become someone within the computer science space, and you said 2 years at community college doing that?
Yeah, I spent so after high school, after basically during the process of high school, I did a program called middle college, and I basically spent those 2 years within community college and some time within high school. And after I graduate, I eventually stayed for another 2 years at De Anza College, which is like a different school.
Right.
Yeah.
And how has going to like community college, like looking back at it now, how do you think it's helped you uh coming to a bigger university?
To be honest, like I don't think it would help. I don't think it helped me that much. In terms of like the knowledge I learned, but one thing it did, it provided me a friend group, and it taught me certain lesson that I wouldn't learn if I went straight to university.
Mm. So people who are like on the fence right now, who are trying to decide whether they should transfer to a university or stay in community college, what would you recommend for them?
So is obviously it's based on their circumstances. So like if you have the option, let's say you have the option to go to a top 25 school, I would choose that over just going to a community college. And the reason why, because if I were to go back with the current knowledge I have now, I would know how to kind of leverage the opportunity versus like if I just go straight to community college, there's certain opportunities that I don't have access to. And yeah.
Like, what would that kind of be like?
So one thing about college is a lot of people talk about tuition and how expensive school is. So like eventually like if you think of private school, you have to pay 60K per year and well times four, that's like a lot of money. But in this case, like if you actually like plan your career and your kind of like opportunity out in like each semester, well you get internship during the school year where you actually work, the amount of money you spend on your tuition is basically nothing.
Right. So how does one go about building a plan like that? You know, because I struggle with that on my own, you know, really being able to understand what it is I want and then working my way towards that goal. How are you able to strategize so well regarding that?
So I think it's based on obviously the network you have. So leverage as much as you can. Like whether your parents like know someone or whether your friends or family friend knows someone. And for me, I didn't have any of that. So for me, my parents they didn't really like they're not in tech. They basically work their typical like job, 9 to 5 job that nothing relates to what I want to do. And for me is I leverage the fact that I am curious. And from there I just outreach to a lot of like people I think that might be interesting to talk to within career or like within other like I guess like interests. And I reach out to them via LinkedIn or ask my parents or someone that I know connect me with them. And that's how I kind of like start that process.
Mm. And then what were you kind of approaching these people on LinkedIn with? Because um, I myself, I'm sure a lot of people are scared to reach out to people because we think that, oh, they don't want to give me the time of day. I'm just a stupid college student. Like, why would they give me attention? Like, how are you kind of approaching these people in order for them to give you advice?
So for me, I start with obviously I introduce myself. Hi, my name is Tom. I'm a whatever year you are, and from there I kind of like approach with like a question in mind. So in this case, let's say I'm curious about their software engineering journey. So I usually ask about, oh yeah, like I saw your background is you work at this places, and I potentially might want to work there. So I would love to hear about your background and how you eventually like got there. And usually I start with that, but like if you were to have like some sort of connection with them, like whether like you have mutuals or you whether you um I guess like went to the same school or other stuff that's similar to them, then you could approach with that as well, which make it easier for them to like, oh, this like kid is not some random kid.
Talking to all these people, I'm sure you've gone to quite a few good apples, so to say, like who provide you a lot of value. Can you share with me like what are some of the advice that you've been able to get through leveraging this method?
So with this method, a lot of time I don't think like my conversation with them was that beneficial in terms of like my overall knowledge of that space. Mainly because I do research prior, so like I would understand like what they actually have to do. But the one thing I approach is like, what's your actual experience? Like besides like generic stuff, like oh yeah, like do lead code, do this, and eventually get interview, etc. But like I approach with like their full story of like oh yeah, like what make you choose this major, what make you actually like want to go into this, and that basically allowed them to be more personal and actually want to help you more because like I guess like you're actually thoughtful about like the question you're asking.
In terms of like the startup field, when did you start getting in? When did you get interested in the startup field?
So startups start my interest start when I was towards like the end of my senior year. So
In
usually
high school?
yeah, of high school. And that happened when so after reading a lot of like self-help books like many of you guys, I eventually like realized that most of these people I read about are founders. Most of the people like start companies. Most of these people like did some sort of entrepreneurship. And from there, I was like, oh, that's cool. I don't know whether I could have the ability to do it. So, but like, I want to get to know about it more. So that's when I eventually come across Y Combinator, YouTube channel. So I started watching Gary Tan, other people within YC, and it basically start from there.
Gotcha. You mentioned earlier about like being immersing yourself in like self-help content. I'm also a fan of like a bunch of the self-help realm. Like, but it does also seem like there's a big differentiation between the self-help content you were absorbing and then the startup content that you're absorbing. So how was that bridge like? Essentially what I'm trying to say is like why do you think you started with self-help rather than startup?
So initially, I didn't know what start was. I obviously most people start like read about Steve Jobs and his like biography, but like it's I never thought of it really. It just like came across my YouTube feed, and I was like, oh, that's like I want some motivation at this point because like during that time was like near COVID. It was like I can't really go out, I can't really do anything, but it just popped up on my feed, and I start with that first just because that's what popped up. I mean, obviously, when Start popped up, I probably wouldn't understand it, so like it wouldn't be like the best. But because I start up with the foundation of mindset, and that's like probably the best bridge in terms of like bridging into like the content space of like how startup actually works.
How would you kind of describe the mindset that you have?
So at the time, my mindset as a like I did a lot of sports in high school, and my mindset is I want to put everything into one thing and try my best at it, which means that like whether I'm lazy, whether I'm tired, I still end up like running at night because I promise myself and I tell my parents that I'm gonna do it.
Like being able to have that discipline.
Yeah, so
Nice.
yeah, in a way. have the ability to actually execute based on what you say.
Were you always like that? Was it as easy as just telling yourself from the very beginning and then just going on with the action? Did you have to build that momentum? The reason why I ask this is because I try my best to wake up in the morning, but I definitely do slip some on some days. But what ends up happening is I'll have too many days where I missed it, and my entire routine will just fall apart. So, in order for me to get back on that routine, I feel like I need to keep building that momentum of I'm gonna do it for myself. I'm gonna do it for myself. Is that something that also you resonate with, or do you think that it's much easier for you to just wake up, go for your run even if you don't want to?
So when I was in high school, it mainly because at the time I have very high ego, as like a lot of people, and the my ego was that I don't like lose. I don't like to. I want to have the ability to, I guess, like show off in a way of like I'm much better than you, and that mindset doesn't apply to me now. But at the time, that's how I kind of like force myself to do it because I want to be better than everyone else. And whether that happened or not, that's a different story. But I guess like in that case, I it was not natural to me. It's just the fact that I don't like lose, and it just like I just force myself to do it, and eventually it just becomes some sort of routine of like, okay, I already did that yesterday. I just want to continue. I don't want to like give up now.
What does it mean to be better than everyone for you? What do you remember that you wanted um, more than anyone else?
I think at the time I want validation, so I want to. I guess like I want people to acknowledge me, and I didn't really have that when I was younger.
Right.
So that's why it kind of like I guess that like whole entire like ego, it just like wants to fulfill a certain aspect that I didn't have before.
And you also were an athlete, from my understanding, when you were in high school, right?
Yes.
So you had to. It was kind of a familiar feeling, getting applying that to the world of business.
I think in a way, um, it's slightly different in terms of like taking risk. Because like in sports, like obviously like you let your team down, but at the end of the day, there's no like, oh yeah, like you lose. That's like it's sad, but like nothing really happened, right? But in the world of business, a lot of people life is at stake. Whether the people you try and like help, the people who help you so far, the people who fund you, as well as just your family and your friends. Because like when you work on some sort of business, you basically have to dedicate a lot of your time within actual the business, right? So you like lose time spending your family, your friends, your significant others, and even like in that case, like when you actually like give up and it fell, like you lose a lot of that. A lot of the time kind of went by without like I guess like you actually have time to spend with your family. So you lose a lot of time.
Right. So, going back to how you're kind of building your story on how you got into startups, when was the first time you really was a part of your first startup? I mean, you said you basically transitioned from self-help content to startup content, and you were just absorbing what that field was like. How did you go from imagining that world to becoming in that world, or playing in that world?
I guess like so I first interned at a early startup after my first year in community college, which is like purely by luck. It's just the fact that I was working and some guy walked into the store with an MIT hat, and I just like start a conversation with him, and to find out he's like he has startups, and I just end up interning for him. And although I didn't really do much, I didn't really understand how it works. I just did whatever he wanted me to do, and to this day, I still don't understand why I did that. But that's basically how I started.
Walk me through what kind of conversation that was like. Should everyone just walk up to any guy in the cafe with a Stanford sweater on? Like, he must have seen something in you, right? So I'm curious, what did that conversation kind of look like?
So I started asking him about I guess like as a customer service, as like a server, you would ask like, oh yeah, like how's your day so far? Like what can I help you? What are you interested today? So like after asking about those stuff, I just mentioned, oh yeah, I saw you have a MIT hat. Like, "Do you went to like MIT before?" And then he just give me the whole spiel of like, oh yeah, him and his family all went to MIT, and he like I guess like, and then I just like kind of like tell him about myself, right? So like, oh yeah, I'm a first year student at De Anza College, majoring in computer science, and from there he just like brought up, oh yeah, that's so cool, like, and that's the story eventually like lead to like, oh yeah, like, what are you doing this summer? And I was like, I'm not doing much this summer besides working. So that's eventually how I kind of got my first internship.
So being in the tech world for like the first time, how was that experience like? What was different? What was the expectations you had from listening to like YC and these amazing founders? Like, and how was that when you finally was there?
So like during that time, I didn't really listen to YC. Like all the YC and all the founder startups like content happened like actually afterwards, like a year after. At the time, I just was looking for experience, and my main goal was to get into Berkeley. And because of that, I just have I guess like a list of goals I need to achieve before my application, and one of them was an internship. So that basically led me to, okay, I'll just take whatever internship because I have the title one, and it just looked good on my college apps.
What was it about Berkeley that stood out to you? Why did you choose Berkeley?
So the main reason why I choose Berkeley is because even like during that summer, I guess like after that internship, I know that with that internship, I didn't really learn anything. It was not that useful to me. But one thing I realized is these people, they wake up very early. They start like working on their like the actual work like very early on and throughout the day. And that kind of like inspired me to like see the fact that, oh, these people are like very passionate about this space. And I want to be part of something that's like potentially could help a lot of people. And eventually from there, I was like, oh, like startup is cool. I want to kind of explore it. And I know that Berkeley is probably like the best school in terms of startups. Like currently we're like top one in terms of like most like startup funded. And I just want to be in this environment of like people who starting stuff, people who building stuff all the time.
Hmm. So by being in this environment, and honestly, I agree with you. That was one of the main reasons why I came to Berkeley as well, is because I felt like it was definitely a world that I've never touched my feet in. You know, my background was more in like service businesses, very like old school type of work and type of what's it called, business models. But coming into the tech, where I started learning about like Series A, B, C funding, startups, it was a whole new world to me, and I don't regret my decision at all coming here. So I definitely agree with you on that point. But being surrounded by all these great founders, by these highly ambitious people, some I've even interviewed, like it definitely does rub off on you, and it makes you want to like start things on your own. So I'm curious, like, have you started anything on your own? Have you felt that deep sense of passion in some of the work that you've done?
So this like to answer your question, when I first transferred to Berkeley, it was I guess like it was not like the best in terms of my, like the best like first semester experience. Mainly because like when I came here, I didn't really know anyone. Like we know that Berkeley is a good school. We know that they have like a lot of opportunities, a lot of amazing people. But one thing is I didn't really know anything about the club culture. I don't understand how like classes work, and I was mostly overwhelmed. And at the time I kind of felt like, oh, like I worked so hard for the past like 2 years, get into an amazing school, but then I didn't really get any of those type of like opportunity that I was hoping for. And at the time I was like, well, hopefully let's try my best to get into clubs. I didn't know how that went, and eventually I got rejected by every single clubs. And not only the first semester, but even my second semester, which is very funny. But like because that feeling of like the fact that I felt lonely, I also assumed that a lot of students also felt the same. Because if I didn't like wasn't able to find club when I actually spent a lot of time trying, what makes like other people like I'm sure someone else also felt the same. So From there, I at the time I was in this fellowship called Fung Fellowship. Looking back, was it a good fellowship? That's debatable. But one of the project topic came up was loneliness. And that's the feeling I felt when I first transferred to Berkeley, when I didn't have the resource, when I don't have a circle, when I just don't have any support whatsoever. And through that like program, that's when I kind of came up with my first, I guess, startup idea. And it was the idea is basically called Bear Hub. And Bear Hub is I get at the time my thought was like some sort of event management platform for like university and student clubs, just like help centralize all the resources as well kind of personalized to students. So student wouldn't have to like search through like a bunch of places for the information they want. Right. So that idea started during class and eventually I end up continuing that after the first semester and pitched that at SCET, which is like a startup program on campus. And that's basically when I basically start this whole like startup stuff.
Oh, gotcha. So a lot of points I want to touch on there. So, um, you mentioned earlier that you were someone that didn't like to lose. So I can definitely understand how you must have felt like when you were getting all this like rejection from all the clubs. So, um, what I wanted to ask was if you were a transfer coming in, or if you knew a different transfer coming in, what would you have wished you knew uh, in terms of how to navigate the campus in order to avoid the same feeling that they felt, like such as you, this experience that you felt?
So one thing I wish I know is to not be too hard on myself. One, and the fact that there's like other options, like not only like in terms of like not like just clubs overall, like we know Berkeley clubs is very competitive and that's just the nature of it and just based on whether they like you or not. And that's not because of like your ability to not like able to execute. It's just the fact that they judge solely based off of their opinion of your like I guess your first impression as well as your resume and whatever essay that might resonate with them. And that doesn't mean really anything. And for me, one thing I wish I would known at the time, I would actually join a frat. Just cause like it would basically give you the foundation of a social life. And I recently talked to a frat brothers, and he basically like told me that oh yeah, if I like met him at the time, he could have got me into a club just through referral. And I feel like the power of networking is fairly big at Berkeley, so I kind of believe the fact that I might join a frat or I might just like do something slightly different, I guess, like instead of like just being sad about like not getting in the club.
Right. No, I definitely feel what you mean by saying like networking is so important, and I've been that's why I felt like as soon as I came here, I felt at a sense like I had to become social, because I feel like everyone in our year is almost in a bubble. You know, everyone knows each other. So as long as you're able to keep telling people about yourself and being able to get your name out there, eventually it'll lead to opportunities. So I definitely agree on that topic. But you mentioned that you built Bear Hub in order to help people with this. So how did you go about understanding all the pain points of the users?
So during the fellowship, they taught me first thing first, go talk to users. So in this case, it would be students. So from there, I didn't during the class I didn't really do it. I would just BS like most of the work just because like I didn't really care of it at the time. But like the funny thing is after that semester, I actually took it seriously. And
What do you think switched inside of you? Why did you suddenly become so passionate about it?
so during I guess like for school, I tend to don't really like school. Um, and the one thing that switched is now I'm doing for myself. I'm not doing for school because I could care less about them. But now I'm doing this for myself. Hence, I've because I already tell people about it. The fact that I went out my way to like talk to a bunch of students, talk to a bunch of faculty about it. I want to try and make it happen. So because of that, that switch has happened because I'm now doing it for myself instead of someone else.
Hmm. So tell me about some like the difficult parts of this. I'm sure, like any founder, you have your own the challenges that you had to go through that almost made you quit or was really difficult. Like what were some of those moments for Bear Hub?
So I guess like it's mostly because of the team, to be honest. So when you want to build some sort of like business or like I guess in this case startup, you want to make sure you pick the right people. Cause the people could basically make or break the team. Like you could have like the perfect idea, but if you don't have the right people, it's most likely gonna fail just cause the fact that you can't do everything alone. Like by yourself. And that's basically one of the most like challenging part of like starting.
What was it exactly about the people that you were kind of hiring that didn't work out?
So mainly I because of like my initial team within that fellowship, I at the time I kind of felt like, oh, like although it's my idea, but like it's kind of weird just to like, oh, let me just like start on my own and like just ignore them. So in that case, I was like, oh yeah, if you guys interested, you guys could join me of like try and make this happen. So eventually they joined, and through even through like the boot camp, the startup boot camp I did over the winter, I also got more people to join. So it's like a big team. And the thing is, I didn't know how to manage a team. I have zero like leadership experience, like actually running a team. And these people, it was not their main priority. So it's kind of hard for them to actually like contribute or even do anything. So for the first like 3 months, nothing really happened. And majority of them end up quitting.
Gotcha. So like reflecting back on that, like would you have wanted to enhance your leadership skills to retain those people better, or would you have wanted to just have a better hiring cycle overall?
It was if I were to go back, I would be more careful of who I end up like partnering with, and like who end up joining me. Mainly because these people they were not that because the fact that they don't really care about it as much, which means they're not willing to put the same amount of work I'm willing to do. And because that just like the fact that there's misalignment in terms of like goals, and I mean like most like hiring, like if the people you end up hiring they don't really care about it as much as you do, and they're not gonna like put the same amount of effort, it's just not gonna work out.
So what ended up happening after that? Like it sounds like any other group project, right? In school, like you guys are all trying to do a group project, but maybe one person doesn't care about the grade, but this one guy does. So would you say you just went off on your own and tried to do it yourself, or did you try to onboard new people?
So after the initial team of that I had on my startup, I bunch of them end up quitting and I have like few people left. And from there I was like, okay, I still like continue all like the user research. I still talk to a lot of people and try to understand, okay, like if we were to make this happen, how am I gonna build the foundation of it, or at least like the plan for it before I bring on new people, just so that it's like more convincing. So from there, I basically went do a bunch of LinkedIn outreach to a bunch of students, and eventually I got like a few students who were interested. That helped me a little bit, and they end up getting their internship and end up quitting. So
Hey.
that's what happened.
That's unfortunate. So where is the startup now today?
So recently, a month ago, I ended up dropping it just because like similar to the initial problem of like people were just not as like I guess like this was not their main priority, like so it's just difficult for us to continue, and it's just very frustrating as the person who like tried my hardest, it just like was not working. So I ended up like dropping it because I have a different opportunity, and I felt that that new opportunity I could learn a lot more with people who actually care about what we're doing.
Oh, really? What was this new opportunity?
So this new opportunity is a different startup in the fintech space. I can't really disclose too much about it, but it's just like an opportunity that came along when just because I know the person.
Oh, really? Did you know this person through a LinkedIn cold outreach also?
Um, Not necessarily. So I know this person within I guess like my time during my time at Berkeley, through like different type of events, and we just got close, and that's how it all happened.
Oh, gotcha. So you didn't have to go to any club at all. You just was able to directly find him.
Yeah, so clubs usually, um, no, it was not through some sort of club. It's slightly different.
Gotcha. And then in terms of what your goal is for this startup, I mean, uh, what are like the lessons that you've gotten from starting your own, and how are you like applying it to this new one?
So one thing about running my own is I realized like to actually make something like great happen, you have to basically put your all into it. You can't like half-ass it and from there I realized like even through all my effort who that I put in my previous startup, it didn't work out, but I realized like that effort counts. It actually matters. So when I actually joined this new startup, I put the same amount of effort. I didn't really care about the hours and or the pay. It doesn't really matter. But what matters to me is my, I guess, like ability to actually grow it. And that's how I kind of applied my previous knowledge of like talking to users. I did the exact same thing when you talk to customers. Um, in terms of like management, I kind of like improve on upon that by just like kind of like learn from content that I mentioned earlier. Like just watch a bunch of videos and I kind of apply the same like concept from these like millionaires, billionaires, startup founders, and I kind of apply it to the startup.
Just by knowing you, I've definitely seen how you're able to take this knowledge that's on the internet and then apply it super quickly to whatever it is that you're working on. How are you able to develop that ability? Is it just the content that tells you exactly what you need to do?
So the one thing about watching a bunch of content is that there's a lot of different advice. And the thing is, you have to filter the advice based on your current like situation, right? So like obviously like one person could say something, but a different person could say different things, but they're both like successful. So like how are you actually gonna like I guess like take that into account, right? Well, in this case, I it's based on the product of like the company and like the different approaches, how we kind of approach of actually scaling that product. So there's like your typical like sales org and there's typical like PLG, which is slightly different.
Gotcha. So after being a founder yourself and after now working for another startup, have you been able to come across opportunities like communities of like a bunch of founders? Have you been able to find a circle where everyone's building, or is it just the entire campus as a whole?
So specifically on campus is AI Entrepreneurs at Berkeley. That's technically a club I'm a part of, or like um and within this like club there's a lot of like founders who like done it before. There's a lot of people who like still currently building or like starting out, and that's like very exciting.
What's what's so appealing about AI entrepreneurs at Berkeley? Are they just a community of entrepreneurs that are working on AI startups?
So well, somewhat that's somewhat true, but for AI entrepreneurs at Berkeley is not just your typical club. Is we're an incubator for like student run incubator for AI startups. So we're actually incubating startups and help them to like eventually lead to like fundraising and their pre-seed. And just like not even that, they we could help them with like finding a team, finding a partner that I mentioned earlier was very important. And they just like allowed like people just to get a head start in their startup journey.
And that's like something you're really drawn into about them.
Yeah, so that's like the main thing that I was like fairly like interested. The just the fact that like just like if you try to find a normal co-founder is very difficult. Or like if you try and get some sort of startup advice from the internet, like a lot of times like you don't know where it looked and some of the information might be misleading. Especially like if you just like look through LinkedIn, like there's a lot of like information or advice given by people who never built something before, and that's like a very big problem.
So for general like founders and builders who come onto campus who want to be a part of a community, do you recommend AI entrepreneurs at Berkeley, or do you recommend other communities? Should they not even be worried about joining community?
So when you if you just like come on campus and you're looking to build something, well, in this case, if you built something with an AI, then AI entrepreneurs will be probably the best resources. Just the fact that like these people have done it before, they know how this whole process work, and they also have like deeper connection within like venture capital, and like even other like angel investors. So like especially with that like AI niche, that's probably the best bet. But there's also other community, right? So there's like, for example, there's SCET. SCET is like a startup course or like program at Berkeley, and it being taught by a lot of like insane like previous founder who like currently retired and just like teaching here. But these people are like they're very knowledgeable about the space.
Right.
And there's some other like I guess like community, but I'm just not too sure on top of my head.
Right. Okay. Okay. So, given what your history so far, like what is your priority now? Like what is your goal?
So my goal now is I want to scale this current startup. Um, that's my number one goal, and we'll see what happens. But I want to, I guess, like apply all the knowledge I learned from talking people to like leaders in the like industry, as well as like just through content. I want to learn these like information and go actually directly apply it.
Right.
And that's my current goal in terms of like I want to grow and actually build something, scale something from scratch.
So, are you doing this like without any guidance at all? Are you kind of just learning on your own?
So currently I'm doing mostly learning on my own, and I also like reach out to a lot of people in terms of like my current professors who I forgot her name, but she previously was the VP of uh marketing at MX, which is like pretty insane to have a professor who have that experience. Um I'm also reaching out to other people within the space, people who have done it before, got like their Series A acquired or etc. But I guess like that's how I kind of like plan in terms of, like learning, because like you learn by doing, but you also want like more information about like what can you actually do, right? Because like you could try to do something, but if you don't have the knowledge of it, then it just like it's kind of like a bigger risk you can take.
Right, right. And for me, I think I have the biggest trouble of like how you mentioned earlier about like cutting through the noise and just understanding what the context of what you're trying to apply the knowledge to. So I love that little tidbit there. And I guess I would just kind of want to wrap up this point in terms of your startup experiences. Like, if you are someone who comes from a similar background as you, he's a transfer student, he wants to go into entrepreneurship, how would you coach them from day one, um, to be able to maximize the resources on campus to enable to do so?
So first thing first, if that person was a transfer, guy or girl, it doesn't matter, but I would recommend take the SCET bootcamp. One thing is because it forces you to kind of go out your comfort zone in terms of like actually pitching in front of people, and just like the ability to actually share your ideas and just collab with a lot of students who are also interested within that space. And that's like easiest barrier to like I guess easiest opportunity you could really get because it's just a course. From there I would join different type of orgs. So like there's entrepreneurs at Berkeley. There's other I guess like clubs who also like specialize and do consulting for startups. Um, I would try and recommend them go towards that route first, just because like they would able to see like whether this is actually for them or not. And when they actually decide, okay, like I want to start a startup, then from there I would eventually move towards like actually find your co-founder. So you could find out through like different events within Berkeley, and there's a lot of like different organization on campus that does that. Well, AI engineers at Berkeley also do that, but that's like I guess like slightly different in terms of what you're building. But yeah, I would recommend go towards that route first.
So, from what it's sounding like with everything from all the projects that you've done, you seem like a very like ambitious person. So, how are you kind of balancing your dreams with building up these startups and making them super big, while also being able to be on track with like school? Or have you ditched school altogether?
So within school, school no longer my main priority. Hopefully my parents don't see this, but I think school I basically do, I guess my best to a certain extent to like keep up with school. Um, whether it's like on the weekend or whether it's like early in the morning, and then I would basically spend the rest of my day actually working and do some other stuff outside of school. Um, yeah, that's like how I kind of like, I guess I kind of balance the two.
Is there anything in particular you do for like leisure activities?
So like outside of like startup and like all this like crazy stuff, I spend majority of my time outside of that like gymming or just like lay on I guess like just like do picnic or just chill on the glade.
Yeah, just or the just like chilling out in the middle of like a park or something, right?
Yeah, so that's like something I like to do and just like either like listening podcasts, like this one or just like watch different type of movies. And I feel like doing that kind of allowed me to kind of like reset my current like whether I'm like overwhelmed at the moment about work or school. So it just allow me to think and reflect of I guess like my current like decision.
Right. And I think that's actually something, I think you brought up a really good point there where founders more and more now are realizing the importance of like resting. I think there was a popular phrase coined by I don't remember who, but it was basically there's no such thing as overworking, there's only under resting. Oh, I think that was Conor McGregor after he was talking about like his fight and his performance against like someone he wasn't most people thought he wouldn't lose to but did. Um but nonetheless, he learned to rest more and completely dominate his opponents after he realized that. So, um, yeah, it's definitely important when you're racing with a bunch of these ideas to rest up. But what are you gonna try to achieve this month?
So within this month, my main goal is to I guess like have my routine down. Currently I'm still working through different type of routine and actually like have a routine in place. So similar to you, like when I try to do a lot of stuff, I tend to also get tired and I tend to just like like give in. Whether I like snooze the alarm clock or whether I just like don't want to like go gym. So I'm still trying to like I guess like get that routine in place while still like balancing like work, school, and like a little bit of partying, a little bit of like I guess like fun stuff here and there. But I guess that's like my main goal.
What does Tom like 5 to 10 years from now look like to you?
I think 5 from 10 years, 5 to 10 years from now, I feel like I most likely will be in startup, regardless of what happened to the current one. Whether I actually use scale this, make this a big company, or whether I join a different one and scale that one. So regardless, I feel like I'll still be within the startup space within Silicon Valley. That or if I have an exit, then we'll see. I don't know. I might start a YouTube channel and travel the world for like a year and go back to the startup.
Hmm. I might include this bit at a later part of the podcast, but it's just a question that popped up in my head. But you said you're someone who likes to fail a lot. So like, what are kind of like the small things you're doing every day to learn to fail?
So the main thing, so one thing I do every day is that because I consume a lot of startup content, because the fact that I also apply them directly to whatever I'm doing, whether like building out a sales org, whether I'm hiring people, or whether I'm just like do marketing. And a lot of time like is most likely gonna fail. Like hiring is hard. Like you can't tell whether someone's gonna be successful or not by just like talking to them at like through like 30 minutes of like the interview. So for me, the fact that I apply these tips, whether it works out or not, it's just me like testing out A/B test in a way of like, okay, this might work. Okay, this one does not work. All right, let's try something else. And that's how I kind of embrace the fact that like the mistake I make and kind of iterate on that.
Hmm. Gotcha. Awesome. So I'm gonna move into the closing part of this podcast now. We have a tradition where the last guest asks the next guest a question without knowing who it is. And the question that's been left for you is if you had one goal in life, what is that goal? Why are you trying to achieve it? And what makes you different from others?
So my one goal in life is I wouldn't say I want to have anything. I feel like one besides like your typical family, raising kids, um, I want to do things that I feel like is exciting. So I don't want to regret. So I guess like my life goal is I don't want to regret on anything by the time I'm on my deathbed.
And what makes yourself like different from others with that goal? What makes you stand out?
So one thing that's different about me, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people also like kind of like say this, but one thing that's different about me is the fact that I don't like to lose. And because of that, I will try my best to do whatever I can to actually achieve it. So in this case, like if I want to go on a run, or if I want to, let's say I'm interested in skydiving or whatever, then I want to make sure I at least try it. And before I kind of like, I guess like wuss out and just like do other stuff, right? So in that case, like that's like one thing different about me is I want to is that I'm whatever I'm saying, I'm gonna make it happen. I guess that's like one thing about me in terms of like I actually believe I could make it happen. Yeah.
And do you think Berkeley is the right environment to achieve that?
I think Berkeley's is probably the best environment to actually achieve that because everyone here are doing the exact same thing. Everyone here is they're trying to go out their comfort zone. Maybe some people might not really like take part in this like thing, but within Berkeley, a lot of students are ambitious and a lot of them actually want to actually believe in this drive of like building something great, building or like doing something just like out of the ordinary.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Tom. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I loved hearing your experiences and all the ups and downs. I think that's a wrap.
Thank you for having me.